Thank you for watching another episode of the A Sports Podcast. My name's Art, here with my brother Alex.
What's going on, guys? What's going on?
So it's Super Bowl week. Super Bowl 55 is on Sunday, but this week we'll be giving you guys a little special podcast. Not a preview yet. We won't give our predictions until Friday, but today we're going to be doing a road to the Super Bowl for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We're going to talk real quick about pretty much what went down all season with them and how they got to this point in the season. If you guys like it, or even if you guys don't like it, subscribe, drop a like, leave a comment, helps out the podcast. You got anything to say before we get started?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Buccaneers road to Super Bowl 55. Let's start in the off season. Tom Brady in March, as we all know, signed with the Buccaneers. Quick question while I was preparing for this podcast. Jameis Winston was still a free agent when Tom Brady signed for the Buccaneers. And then we know he ended up going to New Orleans as a backup on a 1-year deal. Do you think he would have worked as a backup in Tampa Bay?
You know what? Probably not, just because Tom Brady doesn't really have any prior history of injuries.
Well, I mean, my thought is I think the Buccaneers and Jameis Winston were ready to move on from each other.
Oh yeah,
so
definitely.
I don't think he would have worked out as a backup. I mean, he was a starter for 5 years, and then you have Tom Brady. I mean, Tom Brady is the one guy you would want to be replaced by, greatest of all time. But Jameis Winston, I don't think he would sit back behind Tom Brady in an organization that he gave 5 years of service to.
Right.
And then Gronkowski in April was traded from New England. Real quick, if you guys like fantasy football, this trade sucked because OJ Howard, promising tight end.
Yeah.
Cameron Brate had a good season last year. You thought they would be good for fantasy, and then Gronk comes in. Did you think that Gronk was going to be the number one tight end heading into the Super Bowl back when this trade happened?
Definitely not, just because when it first happened, Gronkowski didn't really do much.
Exactly.
I mean, he was just trying to find his footing. He had been out for 2 years?
2 years, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, he was still trying to get his footing back in there, and somehow he outworks two guys that have been two tight ends that have been active in OJ Howard and Cameron Brate.
Yeah.
I mean, just think about that. A guy who hasn't played in 2 years took your job.
OJ Howard actually, I believe, tore his ACL, if I'm not mistaken. So he's been out for at least more than half the season. But still,
Is that the excuse they came up with?
No, that was legit. But Gronkowski took over Cameron Brate's spot. And I thought Brate would at least be, if not the number one tight end,
It's not COVID. I was cooking some burgers, and I don't know, the smoke kind of got into my lungs.
Dude, I hate that you can't cough or sneeze because right away people think it's
COVID. Dude, if you go to the grocery store and you even think about sneezing, it's over. Somebody's gonna go back at you like, there's no way. Man. And it's not intended to be funny, but I know everybody's gone through this. If you got to go to the restaurant, a grocery store, even a doctor's appointment, and you're coughing or sneezing, people will look at you like you killed somebody.
Yep. All right, moving on. In the draft, it's hard to win at the draft because you don't know, you think you have these guys scouted out perfectly, but
look at the Eagles. I mean, they haven't won in the draft for years now.
Our drafts have been so terrible. But the Buccaneers had a great draft. In the first round, they picked up Tristan Wirfs, a tackle. He ended up playing 100% of the snaps this season for a rookie, dude. That's a good hit in the first round.
Definitely.
And then in the second round, you go and pick up your starting safety, Antoine Winfield Jr. And he started since week 1. The only game he didn't play was this last game against the Packers in the NFC Championship game, where he was hurt in the prior game against New Orleans. he got hurt in that game and wasn't able to make it for the Packers game. In the preview, we'll have updates on these guys and injury reports and who's in and who's out, because the Chiefs are going to have a lot of injuries also. Also in the draft, they picked up Keyshawn Vaughn, who sat behind Fournette and Ronald Jones. Had a couple of opportunities, but he just had a couple of drops in the passing game, and then a couple fumbles, so he didn't get as much work as maybe we might have thought. And Tyler Johnson ended up being a solid wide receiver, even though he's behind Mike Evans, he's behind Chris Godwin, he's behind Antonio Brown. Tyler Johnson, I thought, had a pretty good season for the opportunity that he was given. Any thoughts on the Buccaneers rookies?
Not really. I mean, it's good that they were able to get a tackle that plays 100% of the snaps. I mean, you want a guy that can...
Dude, right out of the blocks.
Right. And then
how is
Antoine Winfield, although he got hurt right in the game against the
Saints.
Against the Saints.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
he was the starter all season.
And in the second round.
Yeah. Just winning at the draft, man.
Definitely.
And these are guys that are going to be, at safety, Winfield's going to be there for a long time. At tackle, Tristan Wirfs can be there for 10, 12 years, as long as tackles last in the NFL. Moving on, after the draft, in a surprise move, the Jaguars released Leonard Fournette, which was, I thought Fournette was really good in Jacksonville, but I could see where the Jaguars, kind of needed to make a change, and maybe, I don't know if Fournette was the issue, but they're definitely looking to revamp their team. And the Buccaneers signed him on September 3rd, right before the season started. I know they decided to sign him to back up Ronald Jones, but Ronald Jones got hurt towards the end of the season, and Fournette has been the running back in the playoffs. What have you thought about Fournette in the playoffs?
I mean, I think he's been I don't know. He's just been looking really good. I think he's been looking even better than Ronald Jones. I mean, it could be just his experience in I mean, not really big games, because the Jaguars never really made it to a big game, so I don't know what I'm talking about here. But yeah, I think I think more so Fournette was kind of in that role. It never really seemed like they trusted Ronald Jones entirely,
and
to have that starting role. And it sucks for a guy like Ronald Jones, because he's put his time in, he's paid his dues.
And they did give Ronald Jones like the start and the chance to solidify himself as the number one. But then you had random weeks. I think it was like week 3 where Ronald Jones didn't have hardly any carries. It wasn't injury related,
or he was fumbling.
It was just Fournette had the hot hand that week, and Fournette got all the work. It just...
And then there was times where Fournette didn't get any work, and then Ronald Jones would have a good game, and he'd end up going for 150 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. And then all of a sudden, you don't see Ronald Jones anymore, and
back to Fournette.
Now it's Fournette.
Yeah, I agree. So, I mean, the Leonard Fournette signing was crazy, and if you didn't think the Buccaneers were stacked enough on offense, they had a guy like Leonard Fournette, who ends up, I think, being a big part in their playoff and Super Bowl push. Moving on to, weeks 1 through 4, they start with a loss to the Saints in a game where they looked like they were a new team.
Right.
They didn't look like they gelled yet. No preseason. Don't forget, COVID hit. There was no preseason, so that was their first game action. I don't even think I think they did scrimmage against another team, but no preseason games. So that first game against the Saints was their first action together. Then they went and won 3 straight against the Panthers, Broncos, and Chargers to begin the season. Any thoughts on Tom Brady in those first 4 weeks?
Not really. I mean, it was just a team that they just weren't used to playing with each other. Yeah. And there was no preseason, so I think it was just one of those things where they kind of had to play as they went through the progressions of figuring out the timing, him with his receivers, the defense was stinking it up a little bit in the beginning of the season. So it looked like towards the second half of the season is when you really started to see the defense for the Buccaneers pick it up.
This Chargers, don't forget about this Chargers game. They were down big at halftime. And Tom Brady came back. They rallied back. I remember Austin Eckler went out with a hamstring injury, but they were able to rally back and get the victory. That's when their defense got some turnovers and made some plays, but Tom Brady really carried them on their way back against the Chargers there. Moving on to weeks 5 through 8. In week 5, they lose to the Bears in what many remember as the third down, fourth down. What down is it? Tom Brady, I think he threw it on fourth down and it was an incomplete pass and then he wanted another down. So I guess he got confused and whatnot. And then week 6, they blow up on the Packers 38-10. This was a huge game for their defense, where they just completely annihilated the Packers. Like, they didn't even let them get going.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of people didn't see that coming. And then week 7 and week 8, they also had victories. I believe it was the Raiders in week 7 and week 8 was the Giants. And they signed Antonio Brown after week 7. What'd you think of the Antonio Brown signing coming after week 7 after serving all his suspensions? Did you think he was going to make an impact?
I thought so. You know what? I thought this was the last chance for Antonio Brown. I feel like he felt that it was his last chance. It seemed like everything pointed to, if he doesn't make it here with Tom Brady being the quarterback, Tom Brady was the one that gave him a chance when the Raiders released him, or what did the Raiders do? The Raiders released him, and then he came back and played with the Patriots for what, a game?
One game,
and then he got canned, and then but it seemed like even in that game, I think it was against the Dolphins, right? Yeah. The Patriots played the Dolphins, and it seemed like Tom Brady was looking for him. He even had a touchdown catch in that game.
Yeah.
So as soon as that happened, I said, you know what? If anybody's going to turn Antonio Brown around, it's going to be a guy like Tom Brady. I guess Tom Brady even offered his house to him, or had Antonio Brown go and live there. Meanwhile, he got everything situated. So, you know what? I'm glad Antonio Brown seems like he's got it together. Mm-hmm. Hasn't been any really, there hasn't been anything in the media of, him throwing a fit.
Outside problems.
Yeah, him cussing out Tom Brady, telling the coaches to go F off, telling his defense that they're not worth a crap. Just everything. It seems like everything is good. Everything is smooth. Is he going to play in the Super Bowl?
We will have an update on the preview show.
I don't want an update. Is he playing?
Well, I think he's going to play. I think he's going to play too. I don't care what injury he has. He's going to get injected with some stuff, and he's going to play. All right. In weeks 9 through 12, they had their worst stretch of the season where they went 1-3. They lose big to the Saints. This was on Sunday night. Again, another game where the offense just didn't get going. It was 3-and-out after 3-and-out after 3-and-out, and then turnovers. It's just the Saints just rolled them 38-3. They come back and beat the Panthers 46-23, but then they lose back-to-back games 24-27 against the Rams and the Chiefs. Again, this Chiefs game, the game got away from them quickly. The Chiefs jumped out to a huge lead. If you guys play fantasy football, Tyreek Hill had that huge game that week where he had like 200 some yards in the first half or something like that.
First quarter.
Oh, in the first quarter. That's right. He had like 160 yards in the first quarter with 2 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. Dude, that game was ridiculous for fantasy football. And Tampa Bay was on the other side of that. But they rallied back after the Chiefs took that early lead. They rallied back, came up just short. But at this point, they were 7-5 behind the Saints, 2 losses to the Saints, and the Saints were rolling. It seemed like the division was already out of hand. But they were definitely, I think, a wild card team heading into the final stretch of the season. Right. I think this was a real turning point for them, that loss to the Chiefs, where they started to come back, but they just came up short. Any thoughts on these games right here?
Not really. I think it was self-explanatory. I think, you know what? I mean, I don't know if anybody could have really predicted Tyreek Hill to go absolutely just ballistic and go for, what was it, 200 and something yards with 2 touchdowns. And I mean, he absolutely murdered the Buccaneers, and now his defense looks nothing like, I mean, their defense looks nothing like what they played against the Chiefs. And so now it seems like they found that spark. Who knows? Maybe this was all just a mind game. Maybe they were just preserving their defense for the playoffs.
Or maybe
look at what teams have been doing. Look at the Colts. They waited to get Jonathan Taylor going maybe in the second half of the season, towards the end already, was when they started really using Jonathan Taylor as that workhorse back. So maybe that's what the Buccaneers were doing. Maybe they were just getting by their schedule, but not really exerting themselves as much as they, or unnecessarily doing so.
Well, I mean, I think even if they tried, I don't think they were able to stop Tyreek Hill because they had
definitely not.
They had him in single coverage, single safety coverages, and Tyreek Hill was just smoking the cornerback for the Buccaneers. But we'll see. I mean, things change. Players get better. So, I mean, yes, this loss, the 24-27 loss to the Chiefs, you could easily say, the Chiefs could do it again. But we saw the Saints beat this Buccaneers team twice and then not be able to beat them in the playoffs. So, and then to finish the season, they ended up 4-0. They played the Lions in that stretch, and then they played the Falcons twice, I believe, in those last 4 games. They had that Week 13 bye, which was, I think that was huge for them. They lost to the Chiefs. They had that bye week, and that bye week at the end of the season helps out because you get an extra week off, and now you're having this stretch at the end of the season heading into the playoffs. If you guys haven't already, go back and check out our recaps on these games. In the wild card, they beat the Washington football team 31-23. Divisional round, they beat the Saints 30-20. NFC Championship game, they beat the Green Bay Packers 31-26. We have recaps on each of those in the YouTube playlist, so go back and check those out if you haven't. You have anything to say about the Buccaneers? Here we can see their defense. Their defense at the end of the season. That's when they really stepped up. Got anything to say on the Buccaneers end of season?
You know what? They looked really good against the Washington football team. You know what? I thought Tom Brady did a really good job of spreading the ball around. He got everybody involved. Even Antonio Brown had a touchdown catch, and what Antonio Brown after that game was ruled that he had an injury.
Yeah.
So I mean, even he had a touchdown catch. In the divisional round, I mean, I wasn't surprised. The Saints, they can always make it to the dance, but then they freeze and look at last year. They lost on a Hail Mary pass to Stephon Diggs. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like, what is this?
No, that was the year.
Was that the year before?
That was the year the Eagles won the Super Bowl.
Here you go again.
Well, you brought it up, not me.
Okay. Well, what was it last year? Did the Saints even make it to the playoffs?
Last year.
What happened last year? They lost to the Vikings last year, no? They did.
Was it last year too?
Yeah,
they
happened
in the
2
overtime.
years in a row, yeah.
The overtime where he pushed off.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't want to hear the push off. The Saints lost.
The tight end pushed off.
Listen, the Saints were going to win anyway. They always choke, man. I don't know what's going on with them. The Vikings they weren't even supposed to beat them.
Speaking of the Saints, I mean,
nobody's speaking of the Saints.
No,
they're old news.
Right now that you were talking about the Saints, we saw Tom Brady sign in March, right, with the Buccaneers. Tom Brady, I mean, Drew Brees right now holding out on letting the people know letting the team know if he's gonna retire or not.
Oh, he's gone. He already said it.
No, he didn't. He didn't officially announce his retirement.
He said at the end of the season.
No, he didn't. We're all assuming, but he hasn't officially retired. But what I'm trying to bring up right now is him holding out and not telling the Saints. Maybe they had a shot at Matthew Stafford.
Who, the Saints?
Maybe.
They got Jameis Winston and
You
Taysom Hill.
You
They
think
don't need
Winston is the solution?
Winston.
Yeah.
No, I didn't say he was the solution. I said they have him.
Well, they have him exactly, but no, actually, he's not under contract. It was only a 1-year deal.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, I mean, the Saints need to know that way they can either plan for Drew Brees to have Drew Brees next year, or move on and get some of these free agents, or make trades, because we're hearing a lot of trade talk about Kirk Cousins being moved. We already saw Stafford and Goff swap places. We don't know what's going on with Aaron Rodgers, so there's definitely a lot of places out there that
they are
a lot of
moving on.
quarterbacks.
They are moving on from Drew Brees. There was already speculations what Michael Thomas was taking shots at Drew Brees on Twitter, right? From his whole, if the defense knows that we have a quarterback that can't throw downfield, then they're just gonna try to cover everything underneath and give you those deep balls. But I mean, listen, Michael Thomas needs to be a team player, man. He didn't even have a catch.
True.
Was he to talk? He didn't even have a catch.
Very true.
So I really don't think that Drew Brees is gonna continue to play. I feel like he finally showed his age, and we've never seen this from Drew Brees. We have never seen what happened in this season from Drew Brees. So I think he really is done. Yeah, I mean, I think the Buccaneers, they've been able to come through. It's playoff Tom Brady. Not just playoff Tom Brady, but it's this Buccaneers defense is playing you can't ask for a better time to step up. I mean, even if they're not playing the best ball out there, they're still playing like a top defense.
Did you think at the beginning of the season they would be in the Super Bowl?
The Buccaneers?
Yeah.
I mean, it was a big possibility because you have Tom Brady. Look at the weapons he has around him. Mike Evans. Then they get Leonard Fournette. Then they get Antonio Brown. They already have Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. I'm not going to mention Scotty Miller. Scotty Miller. He's talking about that he's going to beat Tyreek Hill in a race. You can't beat Tyreek Hill. In a race. Wait, I'm not done with my statement. You told. Okay, they got Gronkowski, who was in the second half of the season. Gronkowski was doing great. What was he? He was the number one tight end going towards the end of the season, going into the playoffs.
Yeah,
I mean, who predicted that? I didn't predict that. 2 years he hadn't been playing.
Yeah.
So, and then you just. I don't know. You know what? I knew that this Buccaneers team had a really good shot at the playoffs. I don't think anybody, and even when they made it into the playoffs, I mean, it's playoff Tom Brady. Playoff Tom Brady doesn't just lose. Like, look at last year. They made it with a team that shouldn't have been in the playoffs because look at who he had around him. Julian Edelman. That was it. I mean, there was nobody else. N'Keal Harry was the wide receiver too.
Yep.
You can't.
To me, this stretch right here, where week 9 through week 12, where they went 1-3, after this, I was like, there's no way they make the Super Bowl. Sure, they make a push at the playoffs, being that there was an extra wild card team in there, but I did not think they would make the Super Bowl after this stretch right here. Losing to the Saints, losing to the Rams, losing to the Chiefs. 3 playoff teams. I really did not think that they would make it into the Super Bowl after that. But like you said, we saw playoff Tom Brady, and playoff Tom Brady saw playoff Drew Brees, who just, comes up short, finds a way to just not get the job done. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, playoff Aaron Rodgers has shown to be the same way,
Yeah.
That Buccaneers defense has been getting pressure on all 3 playoff teams, against the Washington football team, against the Saints, against the Packers. That pressure on the quarterback, not giving him time to throw. And that's going to be huge in this game against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. So
Aaron Rodgers had absolutely no time to throw. So, I mean, was that Aaron Rodgers' fault?
Well,
was that because it looks like everybody's just saying, "Oh, Aaron Rodgers choked. Aaron Rodgers doesn't have it in the big games. Aaron Rodgers this."
Well, we see Tom Brady, when he doesn't have time, be able to make the plays, and you see the big time quarterbacks. Mahomes. You can see Mahomes scramble around and make the big plays when needed. I just think a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who is, touted as one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, should be able to, make little adjustments, move in the pocket a little bit to get a little more time to make those throws downfield. But hey, props to the Buccaneers defense not allowing Aaron Rodgers to have that time to throw the ball. And props to the Buccaneers for making it to the Super Bowl in this hectic COVID season. Like we said earlier, no preseason, just kind of jumped right into it. They had a lot of ups and a couple rough downs during that season, but in the end, they're in the Super Bowl, and props to them. I'm sure they're gonna put up a heck of a game.
Are they still playing with 2 backup safeties? The Buccaneers, is Antoine Winfield gonna play in the Super Bowl?
I don't think Whitehead is gonna play in the Super Bowl. Winfield, I think, is still up in the air.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they still were able to beat the Packers with 2 backup safeties.
Yeah. So, I mean, it'll be interesting. Like we said, we'll have a preview podcast out on Friday. Tomorrow, if you're watching this on Wednesday, we're going to have our Chiefs road to the Super Bowl. Today was all about the Buccaneers. Again, drop a subscribe, drop a like, leave a comment. We really appreciate the feedback. Any last comments on the Buccaneers?
No, I think we're pretty good. I think we covered everything.
I think
you got any last comments?
No, I think we're all good. Thank you guys for downloading this episode of the AA Sports Podcast, and we'll talk to you guys. Thank you guys for watching this episode of the AA Sports Podcast, and we'll talk to you guys next time.
Peace out, guys.